This episode of The Unstarving Musician is sponsored by Liner Notes. Want to learn from the hundreds of musicians and industry pros I've spoken with for The Unstarving Musician? Sign up for Liner Notes, my curated email newsletter where I share the best insights and knowledge gems from these conversations, some of which have been featured here on the podcast. From marketing to songwriting to touring and sync licensing, you'll get actionable tips delivered straight to your inbox every 2 weeks. Liner Notes Insider, the deep dive edition, will feature exclusive deep dives, detailed case studies, and premium content that goes beyond the podcast interviews. Sign up at unstarvingmusician.com/liner notes. It's free to get started, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Welcome to another episode. I'm Rabanzo. This is my podcast. How are you? Where are you? And what are you wearing? Today I'm joined by singer-songwriter Anmara, hailing from Harrisonburg, Virginia. She's a grant-winning artist who's earned over $150,000 in funding through various programs, toured Europe and the West Coast, and even appeared on iTunes' Top 100 Singer-Songwriter Albums chart. Most recently, she signed with Chrome City Records, who are investing in her recordings as they explore her pop star potential. In this episode, Anmara and I talk about her journey from dreamy ambient folk to exploring pop, her DIY approach to creating music videos and photo shoots on a minimal budget, and how she successfully funded 2 albums through Patreon. We also dive into her imposter syndrome, something many artists face, and the healthy habits she's developed to maintain continuous creative output. Anmara shares valuable insights on comparing crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter versus Patreon for funding projects, her experience winning a prestigious $75,000 House Artist grant, and her philosophy on making the world a better place through music and her newsletter. So whether you're curious about alternative funding models, interested in maximizing your creative potential on a budget, or looking for ways to maintain sustainable creative habits, this conversation has everything. It's filled with practical wisdom from an artist who's consistently found innovative ways to fund and create her art. Here is me speaking with Anmara.
I don't know. Is this gonna be in the podcast interview, or are we gonna chat for a minute?
Definitely.
Does that mean yes to both?
Pretty much.
Okay, cool.
Where are you from?
I am from Harrisonburg, Virginia.
Okay.
And I'm living about a half hour away from there, just in a little small town.
Okay. You like it there? Probably.
Yeah, it's my speed of life, no, not very much of a rush hour, not too much trouble parking. These are the things I look for in life.
I don't blame you. Yeah, we're in, my wife and I are in Querétaro, Mexico, and it's kind of a growing city, so we fortunately don't have to commute anywhere or be anywhere regularly. We work from home, so that's nice. But we understand the interest in slow things while still wanting some of the nice artsy, restaurant-y things.
Yes, yeah, we're lucky that we have a pretty good selection of everything, considering how small the town it is.
That's good. That's good. Tell me the name of the town again.
Well, I'd like to keep it a little on the DL. I don't know. I like to say it's a small town near Harrisonburg.
Harrisonburg,
I can maintain my mystique.
Harrisonburg, that's good enough.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start with you got me interested in something you said. I wanted you to tell me about your imposter syndrome.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about, being an unstarving musician, and I guess I haven't cracked the code myself personally, the panacea, the holy grail of how to make it and have like a career and be saving enough for retirement from my music. But then I did check out your newsletter, and I think you said you had a similar feeling where you are trying to understand more than at some point you start to understand that you don't know. That saying, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words, but it's like a lifelong pursuit of trying to hack how to make that income.
Sure, yeah. I thought I had some I had this one thing figured out when I started this Unstarving musician thing, and then I realized, wow, there's so much to know. The other people are doing much different things. I was just kind of a regular working musician, drummer, sometimes singer, and since I started, my deal was just to help people get gigs that seemed to struggle from time to time, where it was pretty easy for me. But the more I dig into it, if it makes you feel better, the more I realize that this is the life you're sort of touching on is the life of most artists and musicians. And so I think there's a handful of people who make it to one level where they're comfortable, and then another level, and the ones that you sort of imagine or watch from afar. But it's mostly just people trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of little opinions on kind of how I've made it work for me. And like I said, I think there are probably a lot of people who could learn from some of my mistakes or kind of find some little shortcuts based on what I've done. Yeah, at the end of the day, I do think my life's work is being able to tune into my intuition. And that's how you navigate these constantly shifting seas of the music industry, is kind of finding that deeper wisdom or like that uncanny. Like one thing I remember, I got really into live streaming just of my own volition. And I was really curious about it. I thought it was really cool. And then the pandemic hit, and I was already all set up to do all that. Everybody was scrambling how to figure out how to do it. And I was like, oh, I'm already here. Like I've been here for a year. So I think there's little things like that looking back, I'm like, okay, yeah, if I just follow my spark and my whimsy and my bliss and kind of what's exciting me, I can, I mean, as an artist, that to me is the holy grail, is like staying in touch with that
Yeah.
creative essence and effervescence.
Yeah, sure. Well, that can certainly help, and it sounds like in that particular instance, it helped a lot. As you can imagine, I spoke to a lot of people that were scrambling, and some of them just discovered this is not me. I'm taking a break, this whole live stream. And I understand, for especially those who were performing a lot, and then suddenly they're performing to a camera, and it's just not quite the same for some people. It was a real tough adjustment.
Yeah.
I think it's worth pointing out to people some of the things that you've achieved. It seems to me, before I even looked at your press page, I was thinking to myself, well, you've been really working hard at this and are doing some cool things. You've done a lot of recordings, which I know a lot of, many people would love to do as many as you have. But I'm just going to go down a list here. We'll see if we cover them all. But you won a House Artist Grant in 2014 worth 75,000. That's when 75,000 was a lot of money, kids. In services to record a dream album. I guess your dream album. You charted on iTunes top 100 singer-songwriter albums at some point. You received 2 grants from alma mater Prescott College to make 2 albums and a multimedia lyric book. You've toured the West Coast and Europe multiple times. You've played a lot of festivals here. I don't know any of these, which means absolutely nothing, but they sound cool. And you were nominated the first round of the Grammys in several categories, including Best New Artist and Best New Album. You did a successful Kickstarter campaign with girl band project Larkspur. That's kind of a big deal to a lot of people. You funded 2 albums on Patreon, which you had mentioned to me previously, and you were recently signed to a record label called Chrome City Records. And I think that's a pretty cool list. I think that a lot of people will be like, well, what are you not doing? You're kind of doing it all.
Yeah, it's nice to hear it laid out that way. And when you list all the recording, the kind of the emphasis on recordings, I think that is where my greatest joy has lived. Basically, the moment I stepped into a big recording studio, I just was in love. I was in my happy place. When people tell me they get nervous about the recording studio, I can't relate, because I'm just like a kid in a candy shop with like
Mhm.
all the sounds. And I got to the point a few years ago where I wanted to start to reduce my overhead, because I realized how much I was spending on recording at one point to make them really nice. And the high quality and work with the people I wanted to work with and kind of have that creative freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So I started studying recording and DIYing, and that's been kind of a new evolution of all that, is kind of giving myself that the empowerment and the keys to be able to do it all myself. But that said, I've kind of lost some of that spark in the process because I think at my core I'm just more of an artist and I've always find myself in those situations where if someone's helping me with the tech side, even though I can kind of grasp it and I enjoy learning new things. I think musicians tend to enjoy that constant frontier of picking up skills and knowledge. But yeah, once I get the tech under my belt, I kind of lose interest. So it was kind of nice that I put all this effort into making my own recordings and promoting them. And just as I was starting to get exhausted, this record label and I started chatting, and they're like, "Hey, I want to see how far I can take you if we work together." Yeah, so now I'm kind of at a point where I'm reintroducing working with producers, and now I'm not paying for it. So that feels like an achievement to me, where like if you're paying for something and then you get it to the point where you can do it yourself, and then you get it to the point where you're actually getting to work with the people you want to work with, or taking it to that quality and that level of expertise that only someone else can bring. But yeah, I don't have to pay them now. So that's my that's I imagine eventually we'll get to the point where we're like raking it in if we continue on this trajectory.
Sure, that would be great. And so, do I have it right? You've recorded 9 albums, or will have 9 albums under your belt with the new one that's coming out? Up thereabouts, anyway.
I honestly have lost track, but that sounds like it could be in the ballpark.
So, this is looking at Bandcamp today. So, I
Mm.
saw, I believe, 9 releases. And I guess some of them, I'm sorry, I guess some of them are EPs, maybe a single release here and there, but you had some albums there too. So, it's just a lot of recording. So initially you were paying people, I guess either percentage wise or like a number wise. How many did you end up doing on your own and before this turn of events where you got hooked up with a label?
Yeah, I guess some of those earlier recordings are more like just things to look back at, like souvenirs, or like, look how far I've come. Some of it was on Bandcamp. Like my friend would sit me down and say, just play into sorry, not Bandcamp, GarageBand. Yeah, then I won those grants in my college, and I was traveling around. I went up to Olympia, Washington, which is a little cute little hub of indie music. And I think, yeah, so I kind of got in that mentality of like, okay, I win a grant, I pay for recording, and then it sounds kind of nicer. So I got kind of used to that. And then um it's a little dusty now, but I think my brother actually helped me record because he was studying recording, and so that was free. But yeah, then at some point, I think oh yeah, I took like this artistic coaching masterclass thing, and she was like, imagine your future self, and my future self was in the big studio, like regularly recording. So I just like walked down, I put on my little suit and I walked down to the local really nice recording studio in Harrisonburg at the time, Blue Sprocket, and I kind of like wheeled and dealed and got this pretty good rate for going in once a month to record a day, record a song once a month, and at the end of the year, thinking by the end of the year I would have an album. And how I decided to fund that was through Patreon. And because I was getting this feeling of like, oh, I write all these songs, and I was actually like forgetting some of them because I didn't have a good
Yeah.
recording of them. I wasn't inspired. I don't know why I didn't just sit down with my phone and do it, but I was like, no, I need to record them and like get them out there, and then they'll just like live on for eternity or forever, however long Bandcamp lives. But yeah, so I kind of just started hitting up my network, all the people who are already following, already rooting for me. And I have to say I got a little spammy, I'd like message people and be like, "Hey, like, do you want to support me? I really want to make these songs." And at the time Patreon was new and exciting, and I think I got a little more traction at the start of all that. I feel like as the economy has gone on, it's got a, and people are a little tired of being hit up by their friends for stuff. Yeah, that's kind of slowed down a little bit, but it's still there, and I still have kind of a steady amount. Someone will sign up, and someone will need to move on for whatever reason, financial or otherwise. And so, but every month I have that income, and it was for recording. But yeah, at some point I was like, I think I need to level up. I need to get these skills myself, because I know I love recording and I have all these ideas for production, and it would take so long to go back and forth and back and forth. And I was like, I just need to learn how to do this myself. And I do enjoy it. It's just not like a kid in a candy shop feeling. It does feel a little bit like work.
There's a lot of tasks involved in doing it yourself, whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah. But it's nice to see how the sausage is made, and like now I can speak much more coherently about exactly what I want, because I know exactly what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
I do recommend it for that reason.
Yep.
But yeah, with the label, they are kind of like me. They're indie and just kind of have been chugging along, like going for their dream. If your dream is to have a successful record label, and you just don't let anybody tell you no, and you kind of they said they've seen a lot of colleagues go big, go for glory, and then they go bankrupt. So they're doing a more indie musician style. They used to have their own project, and now they're helping with all these. I mean, they still do, but yeah, they have a bunch of people on the label now too that they help out. Yeah, it just still feels very much that indie spirit of like, we're collaborating, we're pooling our resources, but they're helping me just bring in a little more of the commercial side, the business side. I don't want to say that I'm selling out, but I'm exploring, the pop star side, my pop star potential, because they're encouraging that, and I don't know, I just love a good pop song, so I've never been ashamed of that. As even though my own music has gotten very artsy fartsy lately, like I just on my last album, I don't think I wrote very many choruses. Like I just followed my butterfly through the song, and but yeah, I'm realizing now you want to have, if you want to have people sing along and have your song be a little bit more of an anthem for your generation or whatever, you might want to write a chorus.
Sure.
But maybe a pre-chorus.
Yeah, exactly. I've only recorded professionally a couple of songs, and I'm very much the fan of pop elements. I mean, I'm really a rock guy deep down, but so my first one definitely had some pop formula to it. The second one, I'm like, I found this great keyboard composition on compose.com, and asked the guy if we could collaborate, if I could release the song right around it, and it is my ode, my homage to progressive rock and heavy bands that sort of kind of touched on that. So they're completely opposite from one another. But I think you're smart to be considering some pop aspects to what you do, because yeah, that's what catches on and what digs into people's memories.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. It's like biohacking the brain with music.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long you did 2 albums? Yeah, with the help of Patreon, your Patreon supporters. How you mentioned that you've seen that sort of change a little bit. I think, I was thinking of a funny expression based on what you're saying, but like people before people got Patreon to ad nauseum, but were those albums that you did some time ago? Were either of them recently?
The one was during the pandemic, and that one I did more with the professional studio and the engineer. And then the last one, I just released what I think is the last single off of it. And that's been, it feels like over a year in the making, just because now that, making everything from like the very zygote of the song all the way to the final recording of it. Although I have been paying someone to master and like help me with mixing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just because that was haven't quite. I'm not sure I want to go all the way to that frontier. Mixing is a little bit fun, but mastering, I'm still like, you can do that. I don't know what that is.
That's one thing I did on my two recordings. I knew someone who was just had great experience as an engineer, and then I found out he basically mastered several things. And so I let him do it, and I was very pleased and happy that I had him do it. So
Yeah, it's it's an important final step, especially because people are listening on their phones mostly. So you want it to sound good on a phone, even though it's not where you want people to listen to your music.
but where many people do, it's probably better than what the larger alternative is, which is some little speaker that you talk to in the house. That
Yep.
I've
Yep.
even noticed, I've kind of laughed at, we've had like a first generation Sonos for a long time, which actually sounds remarkable. But I used to think, yeah, it's not really a hi-fi system, is it? And I don't have a turntable anymore because we left the country and just sort of burned the boats, so to speak. But the Sonos was able to come with us. But a lot of people, and including musicians I talk to, they just have some little mini Alexa Google thing, and just I'm like complete disregard for sound quality of the past. But yeah, I would say probably the better listening for a lot of people happens on their phone or in a car.
Yeah, headphones can be great, and yeah, cars are
But nobody
excellent.
sits and listens to music. Speaking of real headphones, although headphones have come a long way, right? I see a lot of tons of people walking around with like what look like legitimate headphones listening to things. So it's probably come a long way for moving around.
Yeah, yeah. It's not all frequencies are lost.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, no one, the first thing I think about when I think of headphones is like sitting down and listening to music, which we just don't do by and large anymore, unless we're doing
Yeah.
mushrooms or something, maybe. But, but, um, but yeah, I don't know, it's kind of funny. I talked to an author several months ago. She was an engineer who worked on a number of famous projects, but she turned academic and has studied in the field of music. And one thing she said she was still trying, and she co-authored a book on why we like the music we like. And
Hmm.
one thing she hadn't quite figured out yet, or she was still thinking a lot about, is how listening has changed and how I don't know how old you are, but like listening to music used to be kind of an event in and of itself, just listening to an album or something. But now we tend to listen to music when we're doing something else.
Yeah. Yeah, we're so busy. We're so distracted that it seems boring or not stimulating enough to just turn off all the lights and pop that CD in the little CD player and bliss out.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so I pulled us off in a far left or right direction. So the Patreon albums that you did, oh, you did one during the pandemic, which is pretty recent. And was that the
Mhm.
latter one or the first?
The prior one,
Mm. Okay, well,
yeah.
that's pretty recent, but yeah, I guess it seems like I remember Patreon becoming a normal part of conversation before the pandemic, but certainly during the pandemic. And it seems that maybe we saw a surge of people supporting artists during that time. So I could see the comment that you made about like
Mm.
that initial mm, interest is sort of tapered a little bit. That may be too a product of if maybe for yourself or for others who've experienced that, it can be a product of your network is growing, contracting, but when you have a beachhead, it's a certain size, and then you basically work that as best you can, and then maybe top out, because people you have attrition, and it's constant marketing effort, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, there seems to be like a rate of signing up and then a rate of needing to go. Like usually when I ask, they're like, oh, my finances changed or um so I try not to take it personally, but
Sure, of course
I'm
you can't.
grateful that it's a steady, I mean, that was the dream of it for me, was to just have this steady income, not have to rely on a gig or not, or yeah, or dip into my own money just to have that support
Hmm.
from my community and my loved ones. It was very meaningful to go through that journey, and I guess I wanted to say that that's part of, I think, my longevity as a musician. Like, not, I think that's maybe my biggest, like, unstarving pride is that, like, I've just kept creating and kept going and explored new frontiers. Like, I've gotten really into making my own music videos and video editing, and have seen some success with that. And yeah, excited to keep exploring that. I guess I was always subconsciously at first, but then more consciously, I saw my music journey, my musical evolution, my music journey and evolution as a journey and an evolution. You know, I don't just think of it as a means to an end. I think there is a lot of ego in the music industry and fame for fame's sake, or wanting to receive that love and attention. And I'm guilty of it myself. You know, I think most of us don't have ideal childhoods in some respect or another. And so I've been trying to kind of parse that apart, like kind of comb out the tangles and refine my intentions and grow into the version of me that I feel like music calls me towards in this kind of unending, like, once I achieve one thing, of course I want another thing. But I think I used to not be very, you know, I think I was more in my shell, and I think performing and sharing my music, and you know, it allowed me kind of this workaround of being able to express myself and turn all my messy emotions into something beautiful. And I guess it's hard to put a monetary value on that, but I think a lot of times when I see other people embarking on that journey or somewhere throughout that journey, I'm like, I'm guessing that they, whether conscious or not, they're also on some kind of journey of discovering themselves, of realizing their potential, and bringing in those qualities into their life of being fully expressed and seen and heard, and held by their community, and yeah, all those groovy things.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, of all the people I've talked to, I can see that as a pretty common, those things are common threads. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about your newsletter plus lyric ebook, but now I was thinking because of all the things you've done, it is how big of a focus has that been over time for you? And yeah, anything you can tell me about it would be fun.
Hmm. Yeah, I've always had my little newsletter as long as I can remember, you know, gigging, and it just seemed like this natural thing of like, okay, I played music for you. You liked it? Okay, you probably want to get on my newsletter and like hear about my upcoming shows and things. So I noticed when I was in the girl band, Larkspur, the two other girls were always very shy to do that. I'd be like, go get the email, like ask them, and they'd be like, oh, okay. So I just never had. I was always shameless about it. I felt like it wasn't too much to ask. It was the least I deserved if they really, if they were, if they took the time to come up and tell me they liked my set and my voice and everything. Um, yeah, it felt like, I mean, you don't owe me a thing, but I feel like you owe me your newsletter, your email address. It's not too much to ask. So yeah, and like I said, I toured in Europe, so I have a bunch of like English is not their first language people on my list probably. Just I haven't been over there in a while, but I assume that a few of them are still following along. And you never know. Like even now, I'll get people to sign up, and I say, you know, throw your town in there, and if I ever tour near you, like I can put that in and into the specs and try to, you know, really contact those people in that area. So it just seems like a no-brainer. Like people are so into those vanity metrics on social media of like, oh, you have a million followers, but if you have a million followers but they can't see your posts because the algorithm changed, and or like you're depressed and you don't feel like posting all winter, which was basically me this winter. I was just like, I'm burnt out on posting. I gave it my all, and I just can't keep doing that. So but all that's kind of over. Spring is back in the air, and my newsletter is still there, and I can reach those people who want to be reached. And yeah, I try to keep it a little bit interesting. I like writing. I've always had that as a strength.
Hmm.
Um, I think the trick for me is I do tend to get focused on the outcome of, like, I want you to come to my show. And I'm very like, that's what this newsletter is about. That's why I'm writing to you. But I have been trying to weave in some creative writing and just write from my heart about what I'm going through or things I've been thinking about, because I know the best newsletters have that element where you're actually making people's day a little brighter, or giving them some information that they needed and inspiring them. So I feel like that is a new focus I'm trying to embrace, because I think as you get older, as I don't know, as a female musician, I think I was a little bit vapid and shallow with it, where I was like, like I need the fame, I need the numbers, I need to be beautiful, I need to sound beautiful, I need to dance, and all those things are fine in and of themselves. But I think as I'm maturing and wanting, like, I used to get, the money would come, from these various shows and the merchandising and everything. But, well, back then I was doing it more for that ego gratification. And as I like mature and like heal and grow, there's this calling towards just serving people. And I want that feedback of like, have I made your life better? Did I give you hope? Or did I inspire you to do something with your life? And I think that is where the veins of gold, that's how to access that true abundance of, ultimately, like, yeah, we're gonna die, and okay, my music will live on without me, but like it might not get that, it's like, have I made the world a better place, and can I do that through my music? And have I already, and I just need to acknowledge it and lean into it. Yeah, it's just such a gossamer thing to like positively impact somebody's life with your song. But it's nice when you get that the monetary feedback, and you're like, okay, this is actually, somebody values this.
Sure. Oh, I think it's a good idea what you're doing with your newsletter. I've had a real similar, I don't know if I'll call it a revelation, but just I realized like I need to like say a little more and think about things I can do for this. This is the artist one, not the Unstarving Musician newsletter, which has its own a pretty defined focus. But as an artist who gigs here and there, yeah, I was kind of like for a long time just talking about shows, and then I moved out of the country, and I've been in a couple of countries since, and so there's a little downtime in getting reestablished, and getting having gotten a little older, uh, get my sentiment on gigging. I'm going to say it's changed. I just mean the type of gigs. I suppose it's the type of gigs from all the experience I've had, and as a drummer, there's a physical nature to doing it, and maybe as a rock drummer too, I suppose. But there's a physical nature to it, and sometimes the gratification, uh, almost barely, it feels like it equals the effort. So I've started singing more, but anyway, there's been these changes, but I thought, why not? I'm kind of like you. I've always been able to write. I enjoy it, and so I thought, why don't I put more energy into thinking about what I can say in that newsletter to people who follow me as a musician, other than where I'm playing, and share some of the creative things I'm doing, or like you said, some other things I'm thinking about. And that's been very recent for me. So I'm still trying to I'm still giving that some thought on what to do. One thing that helps me, and I don't know if you do this, but subscribing to other artists' newsletters to see what they're doing well, what they're not doing so well.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, I was thinking of this earlier when you were talking about your supporters, that sometimes they just want to know anything about you because they're very interested in you. Like a friend or something, maybe a thin relationship because they maybe have never met you in person, but but they just want to know what's going on in your life and in your head, and sometimes they can relate, right?
Yeah, I was talking to someone yesterday. She actually does have 1 million followers.
That's great.
And she says what motivates her is her little sister. She doesn't have good idols to look up to. She'll grab her TikTok and look at her feed, and it's, just a lot of superficial, people looking like impossibly beautiful. And she shows up just to be that role model of someone who's real and grounded and wants the best for the world and for all the young people. And so I feel like that's been like, even in the last 24 hours, I'm like, oh yeah, like I can be talking to that younger version of myself, or those young women who need something other than all the shallow consumeristic stuff. Like I want to, yeah, I'm a big environmentalist, and I want to put those kinds of messages out there. Like you can live simply, you can follow your dreams, not at the expense of the planet. And yeah, I feel like there's always more to be explored of what we can offer.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Listen, lest I forget to ask you about this, which I think is important, probably should be important to you. So, the new album, is it called New the Old? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes out the 22nd of this month as we're speaking in April 2025?
So I've been building the album on Patreon. So
Okay.
like as the singles come out, I release them there.
Hmm.
And then as they come out publicly, I guess, which is a little different than them coming out on Patreon, by the time I realize like, or get to the point where I'm ready to share them with the world, then I post them on my Bandcamp
Hmm.
because it's already like streaming everywhere. Might as well throw it up on there because I definitely have some fans who've already bought the album and support me in general on there, which is so sweet. But yeah, so I made it a pre-order.
Hmm. On through Bandcamp, right?
Yeah, so that whoever bought it could get all the tracks that I have ready. And then other people could just stream the singles that are public. And but it makes you put in a release date, and I have to keep editing the release date because
Okay.
it keeps taking more and more time to like, oh,
Sure.
maybe I should release that song too. And then I work on it for a month, and then I promote it for a month, and then it's like, oh yeah. So it's a moving target. The release date is a moving target. But yeah, like I said, I think the final song is out. I think I'm letting go. I could put a few more songs on there, but it's like, okay, I think this chapter is closing, and
This
I'm
is on
moving up.
Bandcamp when you say the final one's out?
Yeah. June Tune for the Garden is what I called it. I kind of wanted it to be searchable on Spotify for people who like gardening, so I put a word garden in there.
Hmm.
And yeah, I've got a little music video coming out for it, probably later this week. um, yeah, so
Cool.
it's a work in progress.
I probably missed how many tracks were associated with that album because when I first went on your Bandcamp, I love Bandcamp actually, but I'm not on. I say that, out of two sides of my mouth. I love it, but I'm not on there that much. But
Mm.
when I went on there, you kind of get hit with the featured single. And so
Mm.
unless in my case, unless I moved down some, I didn't see. So as I started looking at your other albums, I'm going, oh, these aren't singles. Like there's a full album here. So I think I missed that you had a number of tracks out. So the release date is moving, but it's pretty close, isn't it? Or the official drop date for people who like pre-ordered or want to buy the whole thing. Is that how it's working?
Yeah,
It's
it's
just a
just
Bandcamp
organized.
thing,
It's
isn't it?
organized chaos. I'm just winging it, and I have thought about doing an actual CD release show. I have a
Yeah.
radio show coming up soon that I think will be live streamed as well. It's through Charlottesville's WTJU. That'll be in mid-May, I think. But I think I'll take that opportunity to really dive into the storytelling because it's a concept album, and it has a little bit of these headdresses that my friend made that I bought from her that helped me tune into the characters and the album. So I think I haven't really. Oh, I did an album release show with my girl band, but in general, like I never. It's not the way I think, where I'm like, oh, I released an album, I need to do an album release show. Like it doesn't. But I think that's good for like PR. It makes sense to like venues and to um, blogs and
Absolutely.
TV and stuff like yeah, it clicks into that. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should do this because I can. But I think being able to tie it into my creative process is kind of my hack for everything, because I need that motivation of like that it feels kind of exciting and something I want to explore. So I think that would be a good chance, because I haven't actually just played the album from start to finish and told the whole story. So that might be fun.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm guessing it's the first time I've kind of heard that type of answer on a release date, but I'm guessing that's not terribly uncommon. Like you said, because Bandcamp requires a release date, right? I mean, it makes sense. It sounds like it's one of the platforms you have worked with quite a bit. Maybe where because, as you mentioned, you have some supporters there, so it makes sense to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm guessing that it's not terribly uncommon. Just I haven't come across it yet, so it's interesting though to hear about.
Yeah. I think it just became kind of this organic part of my process, mostly because of Patreon. And like at the time on Patreon, you couldn't build collections
Hmm.
there, so it was my way of kind of collecting everything in one place and rewarding the people who supported me in advance, but maybe they didn't want to support me on Patreon every month, but they just wanted to buy the album.
Sure. Yeah,
Um,
alternatives are great.
yeah, because when I did the Kickstarter, it was my experience with it was just a lot more work than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I
And
bet.
that's what made me want to do Patreon. It's like, okay, if I'm going to put this much work into it and all the rewards and marketing it to people, like I would want it to be this like recurring thing. I've since realized though, yeah, not everybody wants to support you on a recurring basis. Not everybody can. So kind
Hmm.
of making those access points along the way. And I do like Bandcamp the best. I wish they were a little more open to like artist feedback and a little more agile, but I think they've created something simple that just works for who it works for. And I've started really collecting albums on there, and as kind of a philanthropy, and it feels really good. Where you like, because like I kind of missed not having my CD collection anymore, um, for my youth. Like I would look at all my CDs and feel really proud of them and like, oh, those represent me. So now I hop on my Bandcamp and I can see all the albums that I have personally purchased, and I feel very uh, proud. And then I'm like, oh, this is what people feel when they see my music in their purchase list. So I think of all the streaming platforms, it's still my favorite. I just wish more of the big stars were on there, because I like listening to a mix of indie and local and big stars. And
Hmm.
I do have to bounce around if I want to do that.
I want to ask you a couple things that I think would be of interest to listeners. One of them was how you make photo shoots and music videos on a dime. What are your best kept secrets?
Well, it is kind of lucky. But I guess it all started with being part of a scene in Charlottesville, is where I used to live before I moved closer to Harrisonburg. And um yeah, it was just kind of like in this vibrant DI, indie, everybody kind of making their art in different mediums and cross-pollinating. And I would just have these relationships with photographers in the area. And,
Nice.
we would comment on each other's posts and, see each other around town and high five, and I think I would ask them or they would ask me to model for something or like collaborate. I think they were kind of getting more established as photographers and I was getting more established as a musician. So that was a good pairing to kind of cross pollinate. And maybe they wouldn't have a clear idea of what they wanted to do, or they'd have an idea, but then I could kind of run with it and be like, oh, that would work for this song, and this is the imagery that I'm thinking of that. So we just pick a date and do a shoot, and now you can even do the thing where you collaborate on a post, and that's really cool. But one of those photographers, lucky for me, was also a videographer. I think I asked him if he wanted to make a music video, and he had, he's made documentaries. His name's Brian Weimer, Amoeba Films. We made a video and it was really fun. And I kind of sold it to him because I was like, I had a photographer. My best friend at the time was a photographer, and she wanted to do more with video, and she just shot she was experimenting with a gimbal, one of those things that kind of keeps the camera even. And so she just took some, like, I would say like stock footage of me, and I didn't get it from her for a couple of years. And finally I was like, why don't I just play around with that in my iMovie? And I got it. And it was almost like a sign for I don't know, it was like eerily synchronistic, but I kind of believe in the magic of the universe, so I'm not surprised. But I mean, it's still a cool story. And I have to say, it hasn't done this ever since, but all the footage just like lined up perfectly with one of my songs. And it's called Mountain Walk. It's still one of my top viewed, like it went a little bit viral and it went really well. So I think that gave me a big boost of confidence of like, oh, I can do this. So when I pitched the music video idea to Brian, I was like, why don't you just film it and I'll grab the footage and I'll edit it. And I think he was like, well, sure. Because then all he has to do is like show up, have fun filming me, and then hand it off. Because I have done a music video for my song Surprise, and there's just something about, especially if someone offers to collaborate and you're not paying them, it can just go on and on and on and on with the edits and back and forth, and you have to remind them a million times. But if you're only paying them, maybe their heart isn't in it and they can't see inside of your brain exactly what you want. So I've enjoyed just stealing all that footage and dumping it into my iMovie situation. And I've always loved TV and film, and it was a bit of a vice. And I feel like now I realize it was pointing towards a passion of I enjoy video editing myself and telling a story and kind of coming up with all this symbology. So yeah, fortunately for me, Brian is willing to do it for free. The only thing I have to pay for is, and he's a fan, and I feel like he should be my patron because he likes my music. But instead of being a patron, he's a very generous videographer. I've had that with another one of my fans is a lawyer, or like lawyer adjacent, paralegal or something, a coach for people in negotiating, and he's been offering me like legal advice instead of being a patron. So I think I've experienced some of that where I'm again not having to pay for things normally that I would have to pay a lot for. I guess to wrap it up, I love video editing. Oh yeah, and then with the part I do have to pay for is if I kind of listen to the song and I try to imagine like imagery, a storyline. Fortunately, that's really easy for my brain. My mom loves dreams, so and like a Jungian interpretation. So my brain kind of just goes into this like dreamy state of visualizing things. And I'm very into nature, so it's not usually something crazy ornate. Like it's usually like, okay, I'm out in nature and I'm buried in the ground, and then I spring up and there's flowers in my eyes, and it's like so I don't usually have to pay that much, but there'll be little elements that like I need to order, and I go on eBay or I go thrifting, or I look around at what I have in my house, or I love thinking of like, okay, what's something I actually need in real life or kind of want, but that I could also use in a music video. So, like, for example, I've wanted a machete for a while because there's some woods near our house that I want to like carve out a trail that we like to walk. And so, yeah, in my last music video, Granite Bones, I bought like, I haven't tried it out yet, but it's been winter, but it's like a sword that you can also use as a machete. So that's another thrifty hack. Or like in one of my music videos, I was an astronaut but I mean, not like a real astronaut. I was just out in the woods, and I bought like a big vintage snowsuit that's white, and I was like, I want to have a snowsuit so I can like ride my bike in the winter and be warm. Although I did learn it needs to be some kind of windbreaker pleather material to keep you truly warm. So I'm probably gonna consign that and try to make a little money back off of it. But yeah, it's fun stuff.
You reminded me that I've actually, I guess the really short answer to that question was relationships have been a big part of that, which
Mm.
was one thing I really heard. Excuse me.
Mm.
But you reminded me that I have a similar relationship with a local photographer. Not as much a videographer, although he's been doing some video for me and he's planning to do one of my upcoming shows. And very similarly, I'm like, just give me the raw footage. I'll do some edits, and I should tell him if he, if he's so inclined and wants to edit it, knock yourself out. And but it gave me some ideas as you were talking for trying to help him as much as possible. I mean, I actually do pay him a little bit. He doesn't even ask me for a fee, but it's kind of like, tip money to support
Yeah.
him because it's a nice thing, that he's done.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a good hack. Okay, and lastly, I wanted to ask you because I'm actually working on a series about this staying healthy to be creative, to stay creative, and staying healthy on the road, which I know is a challenge from talking to a number of touring artists. So, what's a healthy habit or two that you subscribe to keep the creative output continuous?
I think my number one is I've had such a journey with like sensitivities to food. Like I
Me too.
yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of awakening to something's not quite right with our food systems, or like not all of us can eat everything that we want to eat all the time and feel healthy. So,
I think I'm just
um,
getting old, by the way. So,
heck yeah, yeah. I mean, never saw that coming, but here we are. So I prioritize that above everything else, and I don't. It's just what makes sense to me because if I wake up and I like make from scratch all the food that I need for the day, I know that like I'm going to feel good. I'm going to have the energy I need. I'm not going to crash. I'm not going to stress out about that. Yeah, I just feel like that's the foundation for me is, and I do a lot of like farm to table cooking, like whole foods, because I just feel like, I mean, I'm just learning about how so many things in the grocery store are like cut with other things and there's no way to like regulate it. I think in the modern world we've gotten a little bit away from just that it's kind of like my album New the Old, like let's take the wisdom from the ancient times and renew it. It's like we used to only be able to eat farm to table, and that's or forest to table. And I think there's some harsh realities about that. Of if you're going to eat this processed convenient diet, you might be shortchanging yourself, unfortunately. On the road, I remember I would get a lot of salads for dinner and, just like go on walks during the day and like down to a market because I was in Europe and Spain and such, and like get a bunch of fruit and just eat. I mean, that's not a balanced diet, I realize, but, just try to still, even though you can't spend as much time cooking, stay focused on those whole foods.
Mhm.
And yeah, I remember I would do like yoga and try to, if we were ever by a river or a beach or a lake or something, go swimming. I love swimming, like just keep those healthy habits. And because when you're on tour, life is kind of, I want to say almost two-dimensional. You're like, it's not so complex and multifaceted. It's just travel, show, eat, sleep,
Mm.
travel, show, eat, sleep. There's this kind of simplicity to it. So I found I actually could focus more on self-care routines because there wasn't much else, there wasn't many other responsibilities.
That's interesting. I think a lot of people probably struggle, but in the limited number of times I brought it up with people, I can sense and see and hear, that yeah, that's has been a challenge, and that they want to obviously be better at it, which who doesn't, right? Who doesn't want to feel good and know that they're
Yeah.
doing good things for themselves?
Yeah, and I mean if you're in showbiz, you want to bring your best self And there is that, your face is you can see a lot in your face of whether you're nourished and well slept and happy, and yeah, you want to be shining in all the ways on the stage. So I definitely, when I have a show, I do I kind of dedicate my day to self-care up until the point where I have to leave and go gig, because I do just want to bring my most relaxed, fulfilled, calm, present. Yeah, I just want all my needs to be met so I can just show up and let the creativity flow. And I again, with new the old, I look back at what music used to be to ancient peoples, and I mean still is in traditional societies and tribes and such, as it's just this part of human life, and it happens regularly, like in the evening or as part of these rituals. And yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but just letting it be this natural part of human existence.
I imagine you were tying the way it was once to the way that you try to be on the show days and be self-care focused and just really focus on what's going to happen, and maybe even try to channel as best you can the focus and energy that you spent the day building up, sort of transfer that, and which is kind of what I would imagine that you think about when you think of music and arts, decades and decades and centuries ago.
Yeah. You can just paraphrase me, and you can do the podcast. That was great.
That's what I took from it anyway. I think that's really great. I love the focus on the show days. I was just thinking about it in my own head on when I do perform. Obviously, I know that, I know when I'm set up for a better performance based on how I feel when I get up that day. I usually have a lot going on that day, but you reminded me that it's good for us to just sort of keep that self-care mode in the back of our minds, and whatever we can manage to, protect our well-being that day leading up to a show is great, and then hopefully leave a little bit of that attitude for after the show too, so we can kind of recover well and feel decent the next day.
Yeah.
Well, unmaramusic.com, I know that people can find out everything about you there, and they can also find your Bandcamp and your new music and a lot of other music you've done there. So thank you for your flexibility today. I'm sorry I spaced on our original time, and it was really great talking with you.
Thanks for making time for me and honoring me being on your podcast.
Absolutely. The pleasure was mine.
Take care.
As an independent podcaster, your support means the world to me. You could even say I depend on it. With that in mind, here are some things you can do to help support us. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Or shoot me a review by email, robonzo@unstarvingmusician.com, that I can use on the website. Or just share this episode with a friend. This makes a huge impact on our audience growth. You could also visit our crowd sponsor page at unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn of the many other ways of supporting the podcast, including a quick and easy online tip jar. It's like click, tip, done, easy and super appreciated. You'll find many ways of showing your support there, including through our affiliate partners like Bandzoogle, Kit, Email, formerly ConvertKit, DreamHost, and others. The music you're hearing is New Gods Part 2, the instrumental mix by yours truly. You can hear the full version, download it, or buy it at robonzo.com. And if all this was too much to remember or process, just go to the show notes for this episode at unstarvingmusician.com to find links to all the stuff talked about in this episode. You can leave us feedback, questions, comments, complaints at unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. Thanks for listening. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.